Welcome back to Patrick Christie's Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, standing in while Patrick's having a little break, of course. All of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are coming up shortly. But first, Tory MP Katie Lamb raised concerns about the government's proposed terms of reference for the grooming gangs inquiry in Parliament today, warning that as it stands, the inquiry won't expose the whole truth.
The government's proposed terms of reference for the inquiry into rape and grooming gangs are fatally flawed, as victims and survivors have pointed out. They won't address the role that race and religion played in motivating these crimes. They won't lead to prosecutions for those involved in the cover-up. And they won't even investigate all cases, only a select few. The consultation on these terms ends this Friday. If enough people call for changes, including through groomingangjustice.uk, will the Prime Minister please assure us that the final terms of reference will reflect these concerns?
Baroness Longfield is now beginning the work of the inquiry, with victims and survivors at the heart of the process. Under this government, convictions that are at the highest level ever. We're introducing mandatory reporting on child sexual abuse and putting a legal duty on police to collect ethnicity data. But forgive me if I don't take suggestions from the honourable member who said people legally and settled here should go home to ensure that the UK is culturally coherent. That is a grotesque way to talk about our friends and neighbours, and I rather suspect that her next question will come from her sitting up there.
Well, I'm now joined by Conservative MP for Weald of Kent. Katie Lamb is here in the studio. Katie, thanks for coming in tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You had quite a big statement today in the House of Commons. It's an issue that you've been persistent on with the government. Why do you believe this is going to be, and if I may put it this way, a whitewash?
There are three big reasons. There are lots and lots of reasons, but the three main reasons are it's not going to lead to any prosecutions for anybody who covered up these crimes. And it's worth remembering not a single person has ever been arrested for the cover-up, ever. It's not going to explore the role that race and religion played in motivating these crimes. And we know that that's one of the most uncomfortable conversations to have. It also makes it one of the most important. But crucially, it's not even going to go everywhere. It's very explicit that it is not exhaustive and not going to try to be. It's not going to look all across the country. It is not going to be able to tell us how many of these gangs were there, how many victims were there, how many perpetrators were there, how many people covered this up. The public have to know the answers to these questions.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living. And maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade, and in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a really big thing we speak about here on GB News very, very regularly. Our audience are very interested in this. But how is it that Labour have got themselves into this position? This is a national conversation that's been going on for 12 months, and if what you're saying is correct, it sounds to me like people are not going to get the answers they need and that victims are not going to get the justice they deserve. That's
Absolutely right. The government is just always weak on this. It's worth remembering that it was only a year ago that the Prime Minister said that this was a far-right bandwagon. So in January 2025, it's a far-right bandwagon. He finally has to accept that these crimes are real in June. But clearly, if as recently as that he's thought that this wasn't even real, then he's not going to be the best person to actually get to the bottom of this. And every single round, the government has come up short, and they've done it again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticism aimed at Kemi Badenoch, your party leader. She was Women and Equalities Minister. The Labour Party have said in Parliament a few times that she never even spoke about this issue. Why didn't the Conservatives do this while they were in government? They had plenty of time.
There's a couple of different parts to that. Firstly, the Conservatives did set up the Grooming Gangs Task Force under Rishi Sunak, which has now led to well over 1,000 arrests of actual perpetrators. From the moment that Kemi Badenoch was made the leader of the Conservative Party, she's been absolutely robust on this. She completely understands the issue, and accordingly, she has very strong relationships with victims and survivors who recognise how much she's championed them and spoken for them. And I wasn't a member of Parliament before.
No, I'm not aiming at this at you, Katie, by any means.
But we are doing everything that we can do now.
Yeah, and that's fair. But the Alexis J report, which, Maggie Oliver is now taking the government to court, or she's claiming she's going to take the government to court over, that wasn't also implemented. But why is it so necessary for a private citizen like Maggie Oliver to take the government to court to at least move the ball on this?
It just shouldn't be. I mean, the government is having to be dragged kicking and screaming to do the right thing on all of these different areas. The Alexis J report was a much broader report into child sex abuse in lots of different areas. Of course, rape and grooming gangs is a more specific subset of that. They're both incredibly important. And the government, again, is proving itself completely incapable of meeting the moment. The good news, if you like, about the inquiry terms of reference is there is something that people can do. So there is a consultation at the moment about these terms of reference, which are totally inadequate. If you go to groomingangjustice.uk, it takes 2 seconds. You just put in your name and we will submit a response to the consultation for you saying, this isn't good enough. This needs to be a proper inquiry. We need to know the truth.
Indeed. Let's talk about Reform UK. The Prime Minister, in his response to you, basically said the next time you're asking him a question at PMQs, you'll be sitting along next to the Reform MPs. Are you going to defect? I
think it was totally pathetic of the Prime Minister. I asked him a completely genuine question to make it about partisan party politics. To answer your actual question, no, I am a Conservative and I will remain one.
Indeed. Why do you think he moved on to that? What was the meaning behind him pointing at you and saying you're going to Reform UK?
I think he is fundamentally uncomfortable about and incapable of having a proper discussion about the rape and grooming gangs, which is the biggest hate crime, the biggest sex crime, the biggest state cover-up in our country's history. He's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He should be able to engage on this issue without just attacking whoever is bringing it up.
And if Conservatives were in government, what would you do about the grooming gang inquiry now? How would you do it differently?
Well, if you go to groomingangjustice.uk, you will see a full explanation of what would be better. The Conservatives have published their own terms of reference, which are much more thorough and wide-ranging. But it's also not just the inquiry. There's action that we need to take as well. We need a dedicated unit in the National Crime Agency, investigating police officers, investigating local officials, local councillors. There are so many parts to this devastating problem, and there's a lot of work to do.
Katie Lamb MP, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this very important issue, really, really important. The British public just want justice. That's what they want, and I'm sure the victims do more than anyone else. A government spokesperson said this: the independent inquiry into grooming gangs will have full legal powers to compel evidence, to uncover the truth and provide answers that survivors of these horrific crimes deserve. The chair is currently undertaking a consultation on the draft terms of reference, and the Home Secretary will agree these by the end of March. These terms are already clear that the inquiry will examine the role of ethnicity, religion and culture, and this will not change.